This is the story of the marionette doll. You're here to bear witness to her rise and her fall. For I am her master, and I want you to see how obedient she is to no other but me.
The happy part of happy to too happy, it feels so good, especially when it lays the polar opposite to limp and unresponsive. With bipolar 2, I spend most of my time in the bipolar lows fighting against depression. So it is only natural that I would want to bask in the feeling of being happy. Happy feels good. Too happy feels great. It's a feeling of life. It breathes creativity and it lifts you into a space of weightlessness. The problem, for me, arises when the weightlessness begins to lift me up. That pull, that rise, that's the polar master becoming more active. Happy feels good, but too happy is the heavy weight of hypomania disguised as weightlessness. The higher I go, the further from home I am, and the sicker I become. It's likely that my mind will give way under pressure. The puppet master likes it that way. She likes to break me down and reassemble me into her puppet. She threads her strings through my morals, making me loose and limber. Some puppets have even more strings that attach to other body parts, loose and limber. It's a state that will serve many purposes. She attaches the strings that lead to her hand controllers that look like the letter H or X, abbreviation for hypersexuality, and X that marks the spot. Puppet theater. I won't see it coming, but others will see it when the performance starts. But they will chalk it up to me being thoughtless, out of control, selfish, and even hateful. To an outsider, I look ridiculous. I'm acting ridiculous. Therefore, I must be ridiculous. Oddly, the absurdity is in their ignorance, but I don't blame them. It's easier for me to take the blame and the shame than try to explain. How do you make sense of the nonsensical? Who is going to believe that I am a puppet made in the likeness of Pinocchio's bad judgment and lies, controlled by hidden strings while dancing a fool's dance? Mania, tugging at my strings, although at the time I thought it was just joy. I'm happy, not sick. I think I would know if I was sick. What goes up has to come down. And the higher I go, the further I will fall. This is a quote that I live and die by. The powerful truth of this mantra would be lost to most, but it keeps me alive. It helps me form the boundaries that keep me safe from the hypomanic puppet master and also from the clutches of my chemically crazed doppelganger, the doppelganger that impatiently waits at the entrance of the vortex for my arrival. Unlike the puppet master, who likes to be observed, my chemically crazed doppelganger is the exact opposite. She likes silence by way of shame, and order by way of manipulation, and self-loathing by way of cruelty, and death by forced hand. They are polar opposites. Having this illness is like carrying a permanent match. You always have it. It never breaks. It never wears down, and it's always capable of producing a spark. Mild hypomania causes the match to light, starting a fire. Bipolar is the head of the fire, but hypomania is the fire storm itself. Welcome, one and all. For tonight, I will share with you the story of my hypomanic break. Act 1. The chaos that accompanies mild hypomania ignites the illness. And the illness ignites me. You start off with logic, but quickly the logic becomes a mixture of coherent and incoherent thoughts and ideas. One gives way to the other, which means my brain chemistry is changing. It's a tug-of-war between fantasy and reality. The illness hasn't fully taken over yet, but the curtains are closing fast on the first act. Act 2, fantasy versus reality. The illness has now completely taken over. The puppeteer has seized control. I think, I feel, and I strongly believe that I am coherent and everyone around me is in a fantasy world. Somehow, knowing I have the illness is blocked by the illness itself. My mind is feeding me lies, false information that's convincing me that what I am experiencing is the truth. My performance is not an act. Act 3, the Pied Piper. The puppet master whispers what it wants me to do, and I believe it. She passes on the power of the Pied Piper, and I emphatically believe that I have that power. I begin to dance erratically, enticing others to follow. By showing my vitality and my strength, I attract attention, and I like attention. With the thoughts that she's provided me, others heed the call of my extravagant promises. I am now in the throes of grandiosis. I believe I am a godlike force to be reckoned with. In hindsight, I can look back and see how ridiculous the hypomanic episodes are, and they are. But regardless of what hindsight has taught me, I am forced to comply with her wishes when I am under her control. However, I can learn from my bipolar lows, and I can take insight with me into the depression. The bipolar highs, although they feel better, like the polar opposite of depression, they scare the shit out of me. And these days, I work very hard to stay away from them. The after effect of the disaster that I've experienced are not worth it. Living as a bipolar 2 person in a hypomanic state makes me feel very disconnected from reality, although I don't know it at the time. I think this is one of the reasons why I wasn't diagnosed until much later in my life at age 43. Programmed to act just normal enough to pass as an average person in society. I was viewed as happy and energetic and self-motivated and a fun person to be around until I wasn't. My creative capabilities was active and popping up all over. Being near me, my energy is contagious and magnetic, but get too close and you will burn. The creative aspect of my bipolar highs doesn't last. Soon, the uncontrolled creative fires start burning all around me. My thoughts are racing like fire licking up a tree and vaulting from tree to tree. Suddenly, the forest fire has taken over my life. Act 4, nowhere to run. I'm stuck in the middle of this forest fire and everything around me is burning up. Oxygen is thin and complete insanity is only a breath away. The fire is dying down. I think it's over. I am exhausted. But the hypomanic puppet master never stops there. My strings are still attached. Looking back at the remnants of the fire, I see the charred remains of the forest, and I realize there is nothing left for me here. She forces me to look down, and with that last breath, I gather the embers at my feet, and like a caveman hoping to find new life, she forces me to carry the fire forward. Moving forward, the landscape is ripe with fuel. She compels me to gather materials from it, that will enable her to start the new fire. With that last breath of insanity, I blow air into the embers, and the fire rises again. Act 5, the final bow. This will continue until I can no longer pick the embers up. I can't make my body move. She still wants me to. So with that last bit of energy, I bow to pick up the embers. My strings break and I fall. Then, and only then, do the embers go cold. This puppet has provided an award-winning performance, worthy of dishonor. And with the curtain call, it is from this space that I realize that I am just a broken version of my former self. It is here where the blackened soot of the bipolar fantasy blows away to expose my charred reality. I watch myself fall as I drop from the grip of hypomania. I fall back through the landscape of my episode, seeing my performance played out in reverse, wishing the fall was winding back time, but knowing it isn't. So much damage has been done. So much time has passed. So many people have been hurt. My tears, the only thing left that's active in me, are pushed by the pain of my reality. I close my eyes to the tears, but they pour through the cracks of my shell. I am broken. I feel my body hit the vortex door like a slamming fist. My chemically crazed doppelganger opens the door, and I lifelessly fall right in. She steps over me and closes the door, shutting out the light. I am in complete and utter darkness. I hear her sinister hiss. Then I feel depression engulf me. I am hers to torment.